to our guest. This is our educational series. We're here on the college campus, and I'm here with Daniel Salino.
Hello, you guys.
Morning,
nice to be
Daniel.
here with Catherine.
Thank you for joining us. So today's episode, we're going to talk about real estate owned properties, abbreviated REO. And I get a lot of questions about that. And so we've decided to do an episode today about that. And Daniel has 3 to 5 questions, and I'm going to do my best to answer them for our guests. So take it away, Daniel.
Alrighty, on this nice, cool morning, my first question for you regarding REO is, what is an REO?
An REO, I'm so glad you asked that, is a real estate owned property, which means the bank has taken back the home after a foreclosure sale.
Okay. So to add on to that, let me see. How do I get access to buying an REO? Is it the same as a normal, I'm a buyer and then I'll see a showing or a listing on Zillow and then I ask you about it? How does that work, the process?
That's a good question. So a real estate owned property can be purchased numerous ways. One way that investors will purchase a real estate owned property is at the courthouse steps through an auction. But you must have all cash to buy it that way, and there's no inspection period, and there's usually no real estate people involved. The second way is to find a real estate owned property. It's mixed in with all the other properties, so it's exactly the same as the other properties. So if you wanted to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Modesto for $350,000, you would look up a list of those properties and it would come up along with the other properties of the same criteria if it was listed for sale. Or you can go to the HUD websites. They have them especially on the HUD websites, and we are HUD approved. So we're Housing and Urban Development approved with the certifications to sell on those government websites.
Wow, thank you for that explanation. I didn't know that when you buy a house in auction, you need an all cash offer. So just to ask a little bit more for our guests, can you elaborate how one can get an all cash offer or make an all cash offer for an auction?
Well, you'd have to have all cash,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd have to go to your bank and get increments of like $10,000 to $20,000 banknotes, merchant's checks, and then you bring it to the auction and you sign up. Usually you follow that in the newspaper. It will be published every 2 weeks. But we don't have a lot of foreclosures. I think that's what people really want to know, is that something I should be looking for? We don't really have that at this time, as much as people think that people are behind in the payments. They do have websites showing that people are behind in the payments, but they've just become behind in the payments due to the pandemic, and they've fallen somewhat behind. But we don't expect to have a drastic foreclosure market like we had during the previous crisis. And the reason for that is people have so much equity. So what we expect to have is people may be behind in the payment, 2 to 3 payments, but they have equity. They're still equity sellers. They're going to sell and make money from the transaction. They will not be losing the home to the bank. That is what we predict.
Definitely, and I remember seeing an article telling or showing how much each state makes equity-wise from last year to this year on properties. I think I seen California, we had around $130,000 equity increase from last year to this year in prices. So that's definitely something interesting that you brought that up. Now, for my last question, I wanted to ask you, should I try to buy an REO property, or should I stick with other properties such as seller sold?
Well, that's a great question too. The idea of focusing on an REO property, it doesn't seem to be an enhanced purchasing position like it might have been back in, say, 2010. Because back in 2010, we had REO agents who had a lot of inventory, like Mary Prieto and these other groups had a lot of inventory. And she would invest her own money into the property, and they would be improved properties. They would be in great condition. Ken Elving had a lot of REO properties. Mattel Realty had a lot of, and he would invest a lot of money. But nowadays, we don't have a specific profile or agent that you would say you should go to that website, you should go to those people and focus on that. I think you should just look for whatever you want that fits your needs as a buyer. If it's a price range and you need to get approved in that price range, well, we have lenders that will help you with that. But the important thing is to be able to purchase it for the price that you can afford, and that it's in the condition that will allow you to move in with the improvements and cost of repair that you can afford. So those are the ideas. The bank-owned property, and I think that I'm actually in a transaction with a previously bank-owned property. It was owned by the bank at one time. They can be pretty rough. They can be uncared for. So there's really a lack of consistent care, as opposed to something that was owned by one owner for the whole time, or numerous caring owners. A bank-owned property is a formerly abandoned property that was not cared for. So unless you have the resources to bring it up to that level again, and you don't mind that it had been abandoned at one time, it doesn't seem to appeal.
So it's kind of like a project or an investment property. That's kind of like the smaller, or the picture I'm getting here is that REO properties, they could be good for an investment because usually, as you were saying, they may not be as cared for as a property that was sold by a seller. So I could see something like there could be some improvements made, and then you can make some money through that investment there.
Exactly, I agree completely. And when you talk about going to the auction, we work with different investors. We have Mr. Alsamari, for example, and different investors that we've worked with over the years. And they are very, very savvy and very experienced, and they know when they go to the auction, even if they haven't had a chance to go into the property, we've done title searches. We can do that for you too, because there can be tax liens on bank-owned properties, which is another liability for a non-experienced purchaser. But an experienced purchaser who can look at a property and immediately know how much it costs to get it up to level, to resell and flip, buying at the auction is not as frightening. But buying at the auction, if you want to buy at the auction, give us a call. I can go to the auction with you. There's things to avoid and ways to handle the auction, and we'd be more than happy to help you with that. It might not work for the first-time home buyer, but it would definitely work for some people that are professional buyers.
That's great that we talked about this topic, and thank you for educating us today.
You're welcome, my pleasure. So any kind of purchase that you want to do, no matter how big, mobile homes to $1 million homes, to foreclosed property, to if you need to do a property, say you're behind in the payment and you want to sell quickly, please give us a call. My name is Catherine Knightsby. I'm a real estate broker. I can reach at 209-988-1173. Both our phone numbers are right here. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We're so excited to educate you, and give us a call and educate us as to how we can help.
Definitely. I'm Daniel Salino, and this is Real Estate 101.